So I graduated 5 years ago. So let's say we are looking back at 9 years.
9 years, yes, yes. And knowing somebody for 9 years, and then you realize that suddenly she's become a very big woman. You know how it feels, and all that. And also seeing other, we're having a conversation, about course, seeing other people that have thoughts, and suddenly they've all become big men and women. So you see all those people sitting behind there. See that gentleman sitting behind there. He's a big man on our stages and on our screens now. And that's I nearly said that girl, can you imagine? That beautiful lady behind there and all that. And this young man as well and all that. So I'm very happy. And for me, that is how it's supposed to be. When you have the opportunity to train people or to lead knowledge, the discussion of knowledge and all that, and you realize that people are, through what you did, are making a living, and not just that, but really shining in their areas of endeavor, and that is how it's so well done, and congratulations. When you talk about theater, let me say that when you want to look at the beginnings of the word theater in Ghana, we might not be able to do justice to it, because see, I say that because the word theater itself has its own connotations. It is not a wedding that emanated from us as a people, and so it will have its own connotations. And so it's just like trying to find the meaning of your name, which is rooted in another language from a different language. So that if I am Kwasi, which I am, and then I happen to be in Nigeria, and then I want to find out the meaning of Kwasi from a Nigerian, how would that be? The closest I can get is if they have a wedding that is closer to it, they might want to give you that meaning or that interpretation. And so I'm saying that because if we want to look at the meaning of what theater is from the angle of whoever introduced it, the West, it might have certain tenets that might not necessarily either fit in, or because of those tenets, then we would say that we didn't have that kind of thing. And so that is why I'm always careful about trying to find the place of specific weddings in the arts, in creative arts, and to those of you who are, because I heard some of you are general art students, right, who are studying literature and all that. The first thing I'll tell you is that never look for the meaning of literary terms in the literature. You'll get it wrong. So that if you want to understand what metaphor is and you look into the dictionary, what you find there is not the literary term literature, but metaphor in its meaning in English. And that may not suit what that literary term is. Is that okay? And so that is where I want to begin from. But if you want to consider what theater is known now, it's an art form. Theater is an art form. And so art forms have existed, with the African or the Ghanaian since creation. And so if you look at it from that angle, then it can be safe to say that theater has been part of the Ghanaian or the African since the inception of the Ghanaian or the inception of the African. Because the way we have been going about our things, the way we do our things, if you want to juxtapose that with what even theater in modern day terms mean, that a live performance, in a space with audience, and all that. Can you say that these are practices, or this was a practice that has been alien to the African or to the Ghanaian? No, because we have terminologies and happenings and things like storytelling. You beautifully said that if you can do this in a storytelling form, what is stated that you want us to do it in a form that is so home with us. And so that presupposes that it is a format that has been with us from the beginning. The acts of performance, the acts of let me, for want of a better word, pretending to be. Okay, those of you who understand tree, akama pretend to be this. Okay, all right. Okay, let's play. Akama, you are your papa, famous mama papa. Akama, your mama. Okay, what is that? It has been something that has been part. And so I would want to trace, the presence of theater, irrespective of how we want to define it, as something that has been part of us as a people, but just that probably we didn't have the opportunity to formalize the terminology, as theater. But everything today that we consider as theater, which for me is a live performance, okay, which would obviously and should have an audience. People are supposed to be there watching, are things that have been part of us. And so, if you want to look at it historically, it's something that has been with us. And so that is why, even when you look at the beginnings of, academic beginnings of, say, theater in Ghana, you can safely say that the kind of theater that has been practiced in Ghana or being practiced in Ghana, since the beginning, you can even take it from independence, is that theater that is rooted in traditional sense, okay, because there were presence of rituals, presence of drumming and dancing, traditional singing, and all that. And even if you want to trace it from a very important personality that cannot be left out, if you want to talk about theater in Ghana, it's a Kwasi. Okay, so if you want to talk about what the Kwasi began, which is called Anansegro, for instance, okay, is something that was done or created based on what existed already. Anansesem. I guess you all know what Anansesem is. Do you know Anansesem? Who knows what Anansesem is? Or is it that you understand tree? Do you understand tree? So you have heard Anansesem before. What is that? What is it?
Storytelling.
Storytelling, very good. And so what the beginnings of Ghanaian theater was based on, for instance, was based on a traditional Ghanaian storytelling session, which was called Anansesem. So she titled it Anansegro. So it means that it has moved from storytelling to story performance. Okay, and that is the essence of theater. The essence of theater, as I indicated earlier, has to do with performance. Okay, it has to be performed. And so what existed is the traditional storytelling. You are telling the story. But Sutherland created something else based on what existed already, but this time it is not telling it, but performing it. And so you are moving it from the telling stage into the performing stage. And so Anansesem is telling Anansi story, right? To Anansegro, Anansi and Agro. Agro means what? Playing, right? And so it has been moved from telling to performing. And so the beginnings of theater in Ghana, if you want to pick it from Sutherland's point of view, post-independence, then it's something that was deeply rooted, in the traditions, of the Ghanaian. And so there was heavy presence of rituals. And so you see so many rituals, heavy rituals in various places and theaters that you can find in Ghana, interlaced with traditional drumming, singing, and dancing, and all that. And it's because it's a traditional art form, the base on which theater, Ghanaian theater, was established, was done based on the traditional art form that existed. And so you can, the only way by which you can identify that is the presence of some of those features and characteristics. Okay? How would you know I'm an African, or how would you know I'm a Ghanaian? What makes you, am I a Ghanaian? Do you think I'm a Ghanaian?
Yes.
What makes you think so? The language. But what is it a Ghanaian language that I'm speaking? I'm speaking Twi. I was. Okay, good. What about you? What do you think I'm a Ghanaian? What makes you think so? But I never told you. So what makes you think so? I know you want to say I look like a Ghanaian, right? so it means that there are certain features, all right, that when you see it, you can know that is it. Okay, and so because the Ghanaian theater was built on a Ghanaian traditional art form, obviously that Ghanaian theater should have those features in that art form present in it. Because that is one of the surest ways by which you can know it is from there, one, and two, so its originality will still be intact. And that is what will make it different from the others. And so, Ms. AJ, if you want to ask me, I would say that the beginnings of what the Ghanaian theater, has been that which was based on the Ghanaian traditional art form. And so that was the beginning. And we cannot speak about the beginnings without mentioning Kwasi and the beautiful work that she did, the Anansibro, which in fact established the base, on which others also built on, others like Mohamed Ben Abdallah, who thankfully is still with us. And it would interest you to know that even at this age, he's still writing. Yes. A couple of months ago, he sent me an email and called me. He said, Kwasi, I've sent you something, read it. And when I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. So amazed, and all that. And so all those people built on it, and then moved into other dimensions, other areas, Yawasari and co. Lots of them. And that has continued till today. And I'm sure we'll be speaking about that and be looking at the other dimensions that it has gone into.
Yes, absolutely. It's been profound so far, and I hope you are taking all your notes. I see you with your book and your pen, that's good. Even if you have your phone, just jot down some notes, because this is definitely something that I'm sure we are all going to benefit from. It reminds me of some of the lectures we had in school, talking about these things, and it's really good to go back. So let's take it from that and now move to now. I will first of all, before we go into the other branches, I'd like to talk about the representation of theatre, in the sense that you said it rightly that the word theatre in itself is not originally ours, so we cannot necessarily claim national effects. I'll just summarize it in that way. However, our own national theatre is in the form of a proscenium, which is inherently not our way of telling stories. Just speaking back of what you were talking about, we had our own traditional ways of telling stories, like Anansibro. And Anansibro is definitely not going to be someone standing in front of you and everybody's just quiet and looking. With Anansibro, you have, even if you've never experienced it before, I'm sure you've seen or you've heard of stories where someone who said their grandmother told them a story, they went outside, they lit a fire, and they were all sitting around, participating, call and response, everybody's happy, singing, and everybody's part of the presentation. Now, our national theatre, I mean, something that is national, which represents us as a people, one would think that at least it would be a representation of the kind of theatre that we are inherently supposed to acknowledge or, build on. So just, I know I'm trying to be controversial here, but let's just touch on that aspect of even our national theatre is a representation. So how then do we reconcile with that aspect of our...
Well, this national theatre business is something that I always try to avoid talking about it because I have my own set of thinking, which may be a bit, let me try and answer it. Well, I think that first I'll pick it from where I began. Yes, so we have transposed it, or we have moved it from an system, which is a storytelling, to an group, which is a performance. And so the business of you just sitting around somebody and somebody telling you it's not there, because we have moved it to the performance stage, and that is the theater. Yes, the wedding itself may not be a word that we can find, we can say it developed from us. Yet, over time, we have been able to find space in it and situate whatever we are doing within it. Even though acknowledging the fact that that may be an effect, though. But be that as it may, that is the status quo. And so we have to go around it. That's the first one. Number two, yes. I agree. The stage at the National Theatre, our National Theatre that we have is proscenium. Well, why are you surprised at proscenium? I thought we were even going to look at the building itself. What does the building itself represent? Does the building itself represent anything Ghanaian? No, well, that's not what you asked. So it looks like a sinking ship, doesn't it? But we'll talk about that maybe at another time. And so, yes, proscenium. But let me also add, since we are looking at a bit of history, that where we have the National Theatre now was a place that we used to have the Ghana National Drama Studio. That was where it was. That was an original performance space. If you go to the University of Ghana now, the Kwasi Drama Studio at the University of Ghana, when the decision to build a national theatre, was reached, and for whatever obvious reasons, that was the same place that we decided to put it. I don't know why we couldn't have found another place, or I don't understand how we couldn't have built the new national theatre and still leave the Ghana National Drama Studio there. But we felt it was good to break that one down and superimpose that one over it. Well, thankfully, this same Dr. Abdallah then, who was then the Minister of Education and Culture, then they tried to move it, and so what we have at the University of Ghana, if you know where it is, it's what a replica of what we had there. And so if you go into that theater, you have three major performance spaces. The proscenium stage is there. You also have the theater in the round, in the middle, which would obviously capture the essence of what you're talking about. And also they have what we call the end stage. The end stage where at the normally where you sit and face the proscenium, there's another stage behind. I've had the opportunity to have performances in almost all the three of them. The proscenium, in the round, we did a very good play by Godwin Kote of Blessed Memory, the Tuatu Barek. in the round, and it was so beautiful. And also did the Bernabdales, the Witch of Multi, in the end stage. You know, it was placed out there like that and all that. And so, back to the National Theatre. And so, Miss AJ, that has been the status quo. No matter how difficult we would want to find it, that is what exists. And so, I think that writers, Ghanaian writers, playwrights, you know, having that knowledge, would want to build their plays that can fit onto that stage. And for me, that's a key thing. I mean, there's no need to cry over spilled milk. Yes, you can make the point. Yes, you can talk about it, but that is what exists. And so I think that in building those plays and writing those plays, various playwrights have at the back of their minds the kind of stage that exists. And for me, that should be what, as a creative person, as a playwright, you should be thinking about. You should be thinking about the audience that you are writing for. You should be thinking about the stage that will be available for you to write and all that. And so that is how it has been. You know, that is how it has been. And so we will have to work with what we have to be able to project it. Maybe in future, if we have the luxury of so many other things, then we can begin to think of others. Or moving forward, if as a country we have become very serious about the creative arts and we really want to build some of these things, then we can go in and build what we think will reflect us. But we should, you know, at that point, we also have in mind what the various plays that we have now, are there plays that have been made to fit onto the proscenium or fit into the theater in the round or what? Okay, and so there are things that we have to look at and consider and all that. But this National Theatre thing, I think that at appropriate time we should have a serious conversation about that. I think that we have not made so much noise about it. And so governments and Ghanaians and people think it's all right, but for me it's not. It's not all right. You know, if we really want to look at our acts, I mean, as something that should reflect us as a people, then all those things should be looked at.
And I'm sure most of us agree with that. We really have to get back to that originality, and it will definitely lead us in the right direction. So speaking about leading on, I mean, we've spoken about Winneba Sutherland, who we celebrated her, or we are still celebrating her 100th year. So if she was alive, this would have been her 100th year anniversary. And due to that, there were a number of productions that were held at the National Theatre. I think even they're going to stage some more of them. I was trying to get approval from someone who works at the National Theatre, but he stepped out. But yes, he works with the National Theatre, and they're definitely going to stage more and more of these plays. So when you do get a chance, do celebrate Winneba Sutherland for all that she has done for us and more. So now let's get into the different aspects. Now we've come from an Ancestem to an Ancestral, leading on to contemporary theatre. Where did all these divergent ideas come from, and how did they take shape to become the contemporary theatre that we appreciate today?
Okay, I think that whatever we have now as the status quo, it's something that should be. I would say that theatre in Ghana, just like any traditional art form, but specifically theatre that we have in Ghana, has been that which has had a very trajectory that I can say has been very dynamic. You know, in the sense that it has changed or metamorphosed at various points. And for me, that's the essence of creativity. The fact that Sutherland may have, consciously created an Ancestral does not necessarily mean that every other theatre that will be built or created by a Ghanaian should be an Ancestral. No. it was a beginning point. I feel that it's part of what we call artistic license, right? And so creativity is not static. Creativity cannot be pigeonholed. And so creativity is supposed to burst out and go wild and wide. Okay, and so that is how come we have what we have now. And so even if you look at the historical background, for instance, those who did the creation with Sutherland, for instance, okay, those who were present, even let's use Mohammed Ben Abdallah, for instance, who was part of that movement. Yet, what he also sought to create was a build on, okay? He came up with what he termed as a BB grow. It wasn't an Nancy grow, right? And then you have other people, you know, who were close, like Yawasari and Co. Also built on it, but it wasn't the same format. And for me, that's the essence of creativity. So the beginning point was there. It created, it died off at a point due to various reasons. I mean, you want us to go into it. There are various reasons that can be ascribed to that till what we have now. And for me, I describe the theater scene that we have in Ghana now as I describe it as a positive resurgence, you know, of theater, because it's so amazing. I mean, how people are able to fill National Theatre and then have 2 or 3 productions, you know, at the same time and all that. It wasn't there, it wasn't there. Theatre really went to the abyss in Ghana, you know, at a point. But what is happening today is so encouraging and is so good, and it's due to various reasons, you know, some very conscious, and some by virtue of whatever is happening globally now, and by virtue of how the Ghanaian youth or the Ghanaian is becoming more and more creative and more identifying with his or her roots again and all that. You know, when people lose interest in their Ghanaianness, all those things become extinct, and so they begin to have interest in other things as well. But when their interests are redirected to them as a people, then you find all those things coming in. But there are other things. Look, the setting up of even theater schools in other universities is one major factor that is doing the gains that we are having in theater. It used to be just School of Performing Arts. If you want to do theater, if you want to do anything theater, it's just School of Performing Arts. And even then, they were being referred to, you know, in various derogatory words and all that. Well, when I went there, it was dying off, you know, in the 90s, early 90s. It was dying off, though, but it was there a bit. Now, do you find the same thing? No. Okay, and so UCC also, you know, deciding to do theater, UEW deciding to do theater, tech, and all those things. And look, and over the years, they've been training people in this field. So what do you think will happen? And so it will get to a time that you have a group of people who have that in mind, who understand what that is. And when they begin, then you can see, you know, the effect. And so that is why we are seeing what we are seeing. And so yes, I would describe the current trend as a positive re-emergence of theater, and we have to grab it and push it, make a conscious effort to push it, and we can make what it is.
Absolutely. I'll give a chance for anybody who has any questions and would like to ask him, because as you can tell, he has a wealth of knowledge that he's willing to share today. So this is the chance to get all the questions that you may have had in the past or even now from what you've heard from him. Do ask, and then as the conversation goes on, you can just raise your hand and then you can ask the question. But speaking on, so I'll just keep going. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate, just raise your hand.
Hello, Dr. Wolf.
Hello. And so it's interesting to note that it's a positive resurgence or re-emergence of theatre. But well, I mean, it was going to be my next point with regards to why you think this is happening, but you have clearly stated that with all these, the popping up of all these schools deciding to do theatre, there's definitely no way that the numbers will definitely tell and determine that this is what should happen. But now, let's
But there are other reasons. That is not the only reason. I mean, there are other reasons. I also think that people are now taking advantage of technology, to do various things. I mean, using various marketing and advertisement models, to market it and all that. People even using theater even as a form of brand for various brands, for instance, and all that. These are other things that come in, but I'm saying that the theater being done in so many other universities for me is a catalyst, because look, if all the advertising or marketing theories are there and the personnel to push it are not there, or the personnel who can have the understanding of what theater is are not there, how can that be? That can be. And so that is why I place so much premium on the I don't want to say the I nearly said proliferation of theater schools in universities, but because they are being done. Okay, look, in the last 10 years, can you imagine the number of theater students or theater personnel that University of Cape Coast, University of Education, Winneba, and the University of Ghana School of Performing Arts alone have produced? And interestingly, if you check those who have taken the space now and doing all these beautiful performances all over, check them. 90% of them are trained theater artists from these schools. Okay, using wherever they are to push that agenda. That is why I want to place much premium on that one. But obviously leveraging on other things like marketing, like advertising, and all that to be able to reach where we have reached.
Yes.
I just wanted you to, I think it's normal, I wanted to elaborate a little bit on what you said is the fusion of an ancestral art or traditional art and the modern form of theater. I think is that an Accra.
Yeah.
So is that a structural variation that is distinctly African, or if you can throw light on how the mixture was done?
Oh, okay. I think that the point that I made had to do with the beginnings of the conscious effort to create a Ghanaian theater. That it began from a traditional art form. The base was on. And for that, we are looking at what consciously Kwasi landed. She created that one. We have a direct state effort in it. Create that. All of them falling in Kwame Nkrumah's ideology of the African personality, building the Ghanaian around his or her art forms and all that. So that was a conscious effort. That is why I will want to trace the beginnings from there, because that is one of the very verifiable sources that we can find as a beginning point. Yes, and so I'm saying that what she created, she built it on a certain traditional art form that existed in Ghana already. Among the accounts, she used an Accra, and so because she used that, obviously the play that she created as those maiden Ghanaian theater were characterized with some of these traditional features and characteristics that we had in that art form. And so I made reference to rituals, for instance, to traditional drumming and dancing, heavy presence of traditional drumming and dancing in it, and things that reflected, what the traditional Ghanaian was, knew, and do. Yes, and so that was where I yes. And so I said that, building on further, you would have people who would then either would want to go by that as well, or blend it, or even decide to even take some of those features out. Because you are right, you see, I'm always at a fix when I'm asked a question. So, what do you think is Ghanaian? One of the questions that I remember posing in my class is that, who amongst us sitting here is dressed Ghanaian? And everybody might say it's you. Do you know why? Because they think you are wearing smock. And then I ask, so what I'm wearing is what? Because I don't think that whatever I'm wearing now, right, you can find this kind of dressing, specific dressing in any European country now. Can you? You may not. You may not necessarily find that. And so I have problems with that of what is trying to teach you. Just that I'll be okay in saying that once you can find some specific features that reflect the people, then you may be right, to say or agree that belongs to the people. And so the mix, is dependent on the playwright, the creative ability of the playwright, the background, what we call preoccupation of that person, what the person knows, what the person is privy to. Obviously, when I'm writing plays, some way, somehow, those specific features filter in and filter through. It's based on my orientation, okay? Yet, if you find a place being written by a book White, for instance, you hardly find those specific rituals, traditional drumming and dancing thing that I'm talking about, finding them in. But with that, can I say that his plays are not Ghanaian? You understand? And so it depends on the orientation of the playwright, what the playwright has been privy to. But once the Ghanaian can sit and reflect on whatever is being performed and see himself or herself in it, for me, it may qualify, to be that kind.
Have me just quick follow-up. So, would you say that, for example, in the European tradition, they would separate, like you read Shakespeare, there's no singing, drumming, there's no all of that into it. They'll kind of separate it and say, if there's too much singing and drumming, it becomes a musical, right? So, is that we didn't have that, but we had a fusion? Is that something?
I think that I also respond by going back to my beginning remarks, saying that these terminologies will have to also be looked at. The various terms, the various wordings that we use to describe what we have now, we should look at the origins. Is theater a word that emanated from us, for instance? If it didn't, then obviously whoever invented it or whoever brought it had certain tenets in mind. And so obviously that will fit into that person's or that group of people's situation. When they created or invented the word theater, they had in mind definite definition of what they felt that was. Yes, over time it has become a global technology, it has become an international technology, yet specificities cannot be left out. You understand? So all of these nuances will have a major role to play as to what it is. And so that is why somebody will say that, oh, the African didn't have theater. Yes, I'll say yes. As to the specifics of the word theater, we didn't have it. Yet, if you want to look at what it is now, didn't we have those things? And so terminologies and meanings of words and all those things will have a role to play. Whatever they will want to describe it, and because it's from them and it's their art form, they will have variations. All of those things will come to play. We may not have the luxury or the laxity of having variations because probably it didn't emanate from us. And so when we want to talk about it, we have a definite meaning of what we want to refer to it as.
Yes, I was just going to add, my name is Kwasi. So I was just going to say that this conversation is very interesting, and I find it interesting because sometimes how radical that our performances were, or how fragile they were, who didn't thrive on the supposed defined structures of the Western idea of what theater is. So for us to be able to do the things that we're doing in those structures, we had to take out certain things. We also had to add on to certain things. So essentially what we were doing was trying to chip off some of the radical nature of our performances. For instance, when you take a ritual, you can't put a ritual on a proscenium stage. People will run. So you have to like polish it somehow, but also preserve the essence of it, so that when it comes, the people, like you said, the people can identify, it can resonate with the people. They see it and they know that, oh, this is a ritual that is being performed, but it's being reworked on, you know. So that's how our theater practitioners decided to work on, so that it can fit on the stage that they were given to. But if we move down on and then we go to our communities and our, there's several theatricality that is happening there that doesn't even enter into the conversation of theater at all. But if you look within it, you see all the features. So we have to be very careful, like you mentioned, because the people who define theater were not privy to the things that were happening here. So they didn't factor that into their definitions. And our theater is very unruly, you know, so we have to work on it so it can fit into, you know, Western idea of what theater is. But that's also not to say that we didn't have what we call theater. We did, yes.
Thank you very much, Kwame. It's interesting, you know, looking at some of these things. You know, the rituals, for instance, as you mentioned. No. And so it's part of those things that go in support the fact that what we had, or whatever we see today as theater, is something that is us. It defines us as a people. And so if you see those rituals as part of a play, it is real. I remember when we were, you know, in university at the School of Covenants, there's this play, Wedlock of the Gods. It's a play that is heavily laced with rituals. At a point, they had to ban us from performing it in school. Why? You know why? Because anytime we perform it, whoever played a particular character got possessed. Yes, got possessed. Because we were singing those real traditional chants and song with the right drums and all that, and whoever plays that character gets possessed. Whichever spirit that was being invoked as part of that ritual enters into that person. Because whatever you are doing is real, it's the people. And so for me, that's another aspect of how we view theater. Even though it's supposed to be make believe, because it is part of us, we want to attack it with all the realities, you know, so to speak. And all that. And so like Kwame said, so if we want to represent this on stage, you may have to be very careful, you know, as to how, and so we want to whittle down some of those things to fit, you know, onto the stage that we have.
It's an interesting precursor to our last part of the conversation, which is the future. We've spoken about the past, and we are happy with the positive re-emergence now. But the future, now with all that has been said, with the watering down of some of these, you know, rituals and all these things that I've been speaking about, how then do we hold on to what it is we have as a people in the future? Because someone's, should I say, actualization, or what's the right way to say? What someone's introduction into theater in Ghana would be the National Theater, as I'm going to watch a play at the National Theater to enjoy the production. But that is not inherently who we are as a people. And now, even with the celebration of Ifwa Sutherland's 100-year anniversary, the productions were done on a proscenium stage. So these plays were done to fit that particular stage, whereas her plays were not necessarily done to fit a stage of that nature. So, what is the way forward, really, is what I'm asking.
Well, first, let me say again that I wouldn't want to care so much about the space that we have now. I mean, because it has become global now. That is what is there. And so, for me, the focus shouldn't be on that. The focus rather should be on how to sustain what we have, so that, because obviously, if we want to have our place accepted, our place go around the world, and all those things, initially, it may have to fit onto stages that are available. When it obviously becomes very big and all that, like what Mansa World is doing, globally. Mansa World will be difficult, and I realize that difficult to fit onto a precision state. But if it's able to get to that level, wherever they get to, they can demand whatever stage that is they would want to have it. For me, that is how we would want to look at it. But the future, yes, I'll describe the current status quo as a positive re-emergence. But to be able to sustain it, it demands a lot. First, I would want to see serious governmental interests in it. No, the arts in general thrive a lot in, say, UK, not because the people themselves, but because there is massive government interest in it. Okay, and if the government would want to take an interest, in it, realize it's how it affects the country. Okay, because theater and I've been to places and I've seen people who live their lives on theater. Okay, because you can have performances that can run for months, for 6 months, performances that can run continuously for a year. And so, if you are part of such a performance, you know that throughout the year, that's the job that you are doing and can pay. I think that is how government should begin seeing some of these things. Okay, that it's a positive and a viable avenue to employ. And so, put in real interest there. Not the lip service ones that we are going to build that, we are going to build that, and yet nothing gets built. I mean, positive interests, the government, for me, that's the first thing. And number two, I think that the various institutions that are training should be empowered as well to be able to do more about it. And then the third, for me, it's those of us in it already. We should begin, like what you are doing, this conversation, we should begin to have serious conversations, put ideas together about how we can sustain it as a people. We do serious engagements. We should be out there. We should hear, see. Okay, that's why I was so happy when I saw the SHS students part of some of these conversations. Look, my love and interest for theater started in the secondary school, because when I was in sixth form, I was a literature student. The literature master or teacher that was, came to our school to come and teach us was the brother of Professor Machudusu, Mr. Ben-Bio Asante. And he ignited our interest because he formed drama club. Then, in the secondary school, I didn't know anything about theater. And so that interest built up. And so when my parents even wanted me to do law, and so, first year, second year, my parents felt I was doing law at Lincoln, but I was doing drama. It's the passion and the love and the interest. And so we have to do some of these things to be able to sustain it. If government, would be able to do what it has to do, if the institutions would, doing these things would also, scale up and take it very serious and look at new ways. For me, we should begin to look at new ways because, I went to do something in some university outside, and these days I've been changing the names of the schools. Some are calling it performance sciences or something, and all of these things are able to attract even the up and coming ones, and all that. We should do some of this, and then we should have some of these conversations, okay, and all that. And the name changes has its own nuances, and so people look at the marketing aspect of it. They are looking at the how to make it better. For me, if we're able to do some of these things and others, we can sustain it. But if we leave it as it is and think that if we leave it on autopilot, it will work. No, autopilots for me don't work. There has to be a conscious effort for us to sustain it and push it.
Amazing, amazing. So just to wrap it all up, if no one else has any question to ask, we've gone through the past. We've spoken about the origins of theater in Ghana. We're talking about now the resurgence, the re-emergence, which is positive, and we are excited about because the numbers are trooping into the theaters to watch these productions. But then we have a role to play to ensure that this continues on. And like you mentioned, if we keep, I would even just chip in now that if we just keep using the National Theatre with all these numbers going in and we're not even thinking about the capacity of the National Theatre to hold these numbers, then it becomes an issue on the facility, physically, the facility itself, where we have it breaking down, and then we'll now have to be pumping money into making sure that it's a working facility. But then is that money even getting there? We don't want to wait until our facilities are just run down. We also want to create the capacity for the numbers that are being, encouraging people to go and watch, so many other things that we can do. And now also how we can as a people respect the art of theater and know that it has the opportunity or the ability to raise this country and put it where we all want to see it one day. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Ernest. It's really been eye-opening, and just to chip this in, this is just a side note. I don't know if you remember, there was one time I was supposed to be at a rehearsal, and nobody in the department knew I was working at a radio station. And I was supposed to be at rehearsal, and I didn't go for rehearsal. I went to the radio station to host a show while we were having rehearsal, almost technical night, which is very important, and I had to host him. So he ended up coming into the studio and seeing me, and hey, Miss AJ, okay. And we had the interview, and then I ended up driving back to the department in his car, and then going back to the rehearsal. I thank God I'm alive because I honestly thought I was dead that day. But I think that this is like full circle moment because me also invited him here to have this conversation. It's really enlightening.
So it's kind of payback, right?
Not exactly, but yeah, thank you so much for your time. And yes, we have amazing other panels, and I'm going to be in conversation with filmmakers who are really changing the dynamic in an hour. So that's at 2:30. So you can just keep your ears to the ground and find out what exactly is happening and join me again at 2:30. We'll be to talk to young budding filmmakers, and then they tell us what storytelling has to play in filmmaking. We're going to dissect it just as we've done here. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy PaGya. Please,